Well, the beginning of the Loser Club has begun. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the HBO original series, Welcome to Derry. This will follow episode 2, which is called That Thing in the Dark, and is directed by Andy Muschietti. Okay, yeah, so after the craziness that was the last episode, what a way to step down in quality and entertainment. And I'm not saying that this episode didn't have a lot to do because it's an hour and 5 minutes long, but this was a pretty bad episode, to be fairly honest. And there's some cool parts. There's some stuff with like the demon of Pennywise and stuff like that. But the stuff with the military and the idea of MK Ultra and the idea that the General Francis Shaw actually was the perpetrator of the incident that happened to Hanlon's character, who was the grandfather of Mike, is pretty egregious when it comes to storytelling. Like, apparently there's a thing with his brain, Hanlon's brain, where he doesn't have fear. They could have gone through that a different way. To be fairly honest, it wasn't good. It was pretty bad, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And so therefore, yeah, it was pretty terrible. The whole stuff with Hanlon and the military is it's so out of left field. It's so weird, and the idea that they're trying to find the thing that's buried in Derry doesn't make any sense, because all of a sudden the military is gone in the sequel, in the original book series. So what's going on there? There's no reference to the military at all. I know this takes place 27 years before that, that new incident with the kids from the book. I don't. There's just a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, we get to introduce to Will Hanlon, who's the son, and Taylour Paige, which is his wife, who has some interesting moments where she sees kids beating up this kid, and no one seems to be reacting to it. There's a lot of racism going on, as there would be in the 60s, which is okay, fine, whatever. Will Hanlon actually kind of befriends this kid who is rich, who is also geeky other kid. The stuff with the kids is not very interesting either, especially in this episode, because they got rid of the two kids. They got rid of Eurus's kid, so that's gonna be interesting how that plays out into Stanley's character. The military stuff, using Dick Halloran as a psychic, really kind of baffles me a little bit, because the whole idea of Dick Halloran is a much more interesting, mysterious character in The Shining, and using him here as a way to find what ultimately comes to a 1930s a vehicle, car, with a bunch of bodies inside is an interesting idea that I'm sure is going to lead into the next season. Maybe they won't even talk about it, I don't know, but they're using it as a way to stop the current stocking of military, the stocking of nuclear weapons in Cuba and of course Russia. Yeah, no, why? Like I said, it doesn't need to happen. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with the military. The fact that they're trying to find the entity because they know about it being buried just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't feel like it's justified. It feels like they don't have enough story here, that they don't have enough ideas, that the kids are not really the interesting point, that they need to add in this military subplot. And I'm not saying you can't have something there where the military's on base and they start noticing this stuff and they start experimenting, and like I said, it goes into the mist territory. That would be fine if it was that route, but it's so stupid. And the idea of like Hanlon's character, confronting the one guy who is the one that is being accused of beating up Hanlon, and the only way he knows is because of the Russian gun, with how it's operated. And it's a cool scene, but it's just not really much there. The kid, Will Hanlon, is much more interesting than the whole entire military plot, and even he's not really that interesting at the moment because there's not much there to him. He's just a science geek, like his eventual son, I think, is going to be his son or whatever. His mother is dealing with that situation, and he gets a stink bombed by a bully, and he befriends Rich, which is this, like I said, nerdy kid who's kind of in love with Margie's character, who, like I said, I guess is going to become more important to the story, who's confronting Lilly's character because of what she saw in the last episode. And then you have the situation with Ronnie and Lilly, that whole situation. And Lily's not willing to confess that they saw something that was really demonic. And why are those boys being, what happened to the boys? Because they disappeared. All the kids have disappeared. And there's that whole, like I said, they blamed Ronnie's father and that whole situation because, of course, it happened at his theater and it's really their fault. But, of course, because it's 1960s, Ronnie is accused because he opens his theater and you start, like I said, a lot of racism going on, which is to be expected, I guess. And then, Lily just doesn't want to deal with the situation. She's having to deal with the fact that her mother may take her back to the asylum, which is the opening to the movie, like the opening credit sequence is really cool because you see a lot of stuff they're referencing, like the asylum and stuff like that, where she goes to. So we'll see what happens there. Like I said, Lily's taken back because she starts freaking out because not only is she having this issue with like not only Margie and the the kids and how they're reacting, but she also has a breakdown at the grocery store where basically the demonic entity that is it attacks her, and there's some really cool stuff there where like you start seeing like the shelving units start moving and kind of blocking her off, and all of a sudden she gets to a point where she is kind of confronted with the pickle jars because her father was killed and supposedly put in the pickle jars. So you see the pickle jars with the face, and it's kind of grotesque and kind of cool and unique and interesting, and like that stuff's pretty cool. Like I said, I love when they do the scares like that. And there's something really cool that happens with Ronnie's character, but nothing outside of that is really that interesting. Like these kids are kind of bland stereotypes. Lily is the Bev of this story, and Will is going to be the Mike of this story, and sounds like Rich is going to be kind of a mixture of Bill and Richie and stuff like that, and maybe Margie is just going to be that friend that's I guess, I don't know. And there's a whole incident with the Paul Bunyan statue, which was fine, and you could tell I'm really deflated by this episode because I felt the first episode was so fun and entertaining, but there were some slow moments in there. But I feel like this is just nothing but slow moments, nothing but boringness. And like I said, Ronnie has her encounter with the entity that is Pennywise or it, where she basically is, I would say Nightmare on Elm Street style with Freddy, is kind of cocooned into like this shell that is like a placebo shell or whatever that a baby goes in, and she kind of falls out of a quote unquote vagina. And she is like confronted by a demonic version of her mother who blames her for her death, and it's really cool because it like gets up and it's just really creepy and disturbing. That stuff is pretty cool because it goes into the nature of what it does, which is eat on your fears and stuff like that. Other than that, there's just how's this episode an hour and 6 minutes? It could be in 40 minutes and been just fine. It's just a lot of stuff where people are reacting to things and dealing with Hanlon's situation, and once again the whole Abdullah Oblongata or whatever you call it being damaged in the war, and like the fact that General was doing MK Ultra on the Hanlon and stuff like that, and you get to see like Dick Halloran go out with his boys and have a beer and watch the racism that's doing that, and the idea that they're using his shining abilities to this entity. I don't know. I really hope this next episode is better than this episode because this episode's pretty bad. I'm so frustrated with what I saw. I don't want to scream and yell because it's not worth doing, but this is the way the series is going to go. I'm not really hopeful for where this is going to turn out. But yeah, that is the second episode, The Thing in the Dark for It Welcome to Derry. Once again, some cool references. We see the alleyway that we see, of course, and the butcher we know about, the cleaver guy, and some like I said, Eurus, as we learn about Eurus's father, the Eurus family and Hanlon's family are of course, part of this whole situation. I'm assuming that everybody's gonna be connected to the kids or whatever. Ronnie and Will meet and stuff like that, and yeah, that's the thing in the dark. That's what it is. So with that said, for my final score, I'm giving this a 4 out of 10. It's really bad. Like I said, you may like it. I don't know. But for me, 4 out of 10 is where I'm rolling with this. So yeah, pretty disappointing. So anyways, that's my take on episode 2 of It Welcome to Derry. I do appreciate you watching. Comments below. Let me know what you think of the episode. What do you think of it overall? If you liked it, let me know why. If you didn't, let me know why as well. But yeah, there we go. If you like this video, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. As always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.